1 month after the negotiations, Miller stood in Earth's United Defense Command Center, watching the massive screens display live feeds from across the galaxy. The changes were already visible. Ships from every Council species now moved freely through Earth's solar system. The Quantum Tunnel Network's central hub, once a secret project, was being built openly with joint human-alien crews. Its spiral arms stretched out into space, a physical symbol of the new cooperation. "Your gamble paid off," Admiral Peters said, standing beside Miller. "When we sent you up there, I thought we were sacrificing one man to buy time." Miller smiled slightly. They never understood what they were really seeing. They thought Earth was just a strategic location, a piece on their game board. They didn't realize we were playing a different game entirely. The main screen showed the new Earth Embassy on the Council station. It was as large as any other major species quarters now, and busy with diplomatic traffic. Human scientists worked openly with alien researchers, sharing ideas and solving problems together. "The corporate representatives are still complaining," Peters noted, reading from a report. "But they're also lining up to establish legal partnerships with Earth companies." "Of course they are," Miller replied. "They finally understand that working with us is more profitable than stealing from us." The first joint patents are already being registered. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. The Light Scholar's crystalline form appeared on the screen, chiming with excitement. "Ambassador Miller, the first stable quantum tunnel test was successful. Your harmonizer design worked perfectly." Miller nodded, genuinely pleased. "Excellent news. Have the trade route calculations been updated?" "Yes," the scholar chimed. "Once the network is complete, travel time between Earth and the core worlds will be reduced to 17 minutes. Trade ministers are already predicting an economic boom." After the transmission ended, Miller walked to the window overlooking the city. New alien architecture blended with human buildings, while ships from a dozen worlds moved through the sky. Earth was transforming, but not as a subject world. It was changing on its own terms. "Some of the other species are still nervous about how quickly we're advancing," Peters said. "They're not used to this pace of change." "They'll adapt," Miller replied. "They're already learning from us, just as we're learning from them. That's the real victory here, not the technology or the treaties, but the change in thinking." His communicator buzzed. The Council was ratifying another human patent, this one for a new type of AI that combined alien quantum processors with human creativity algorithms. It would be manufactured jointly by Earth and core world companies. "You know," Peters said thoughtfully, "when they demanded one human negotiator, they thought they were limiting us. Instead, they gave us exactly what we needed: one voice to speak our truth." Miller nodded. They expected submission and got collaboration. They looked for weakness and found strength. But most importantly, they learned what humans have always known: real power comes from working together, not standing apart. The screens showed more images from across the galaxy: human teachers in alien universities, alien students in Earth schools, joint research projects, mixed cultural events. The barriers were falling, replaced by bridges. "The quantum tunnel network will be complete in 6 months," Miller said. "After that, distance won't matter anymore. Ideas will flow freely between worlds. Innovation will accelerate. The galaxy will change faster than ever before. And Earth will be at the center of it all," Peters added. "Not the center," Miller corrected. "Just one voice among many, but a voice that's finally being heard." He touched the window, feeling the subtle vibration of a world in transformation. When he'd walked up that ramp to the alien ship, he carried humanity's future with him. Now that future was unfolding in ways even he hadn't imagined. The Council had sent for one human to negotiate, expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they'd discovered a civilization ready to lead them into a new age, an age of cooperation, innovation, and shared advancement. They'd wanted to change Earth. Instead, Earth had changed the galaxy. And this was just the beginning. The council's private chamber was smaller than the main hall, but far more impressive. Ancient artifacts from 100 worlds decorated its walls, each telling a story of power and advancement. Miller sat at a round table with the 12 most influential council members, his posture relaxed but alert. "Your terms are unusual," first speaker Reed said, mandibles clicking softly. "Full council membership for Earth, immediate recognition of all human patent rights, and joint control of the Quantum Tunnel Project. Plus compensation for all stolen technologies," Miller added calmly, "and a public acknowledgement of Earth's contributions." The crystalline being, who Miller now knew was called the Light Scholar, chimed softly. "The academic coalition supports these terms. Human insights into quantum mechanics alone are worth the price." "The price is our pride," growled the reptilian trade minister. "We'd be admitting that a young species outsmarted us." Miller leaned forward. "No, you'd be admitting that diversity of thought has value. That different approaches can lead to better solutions." He paused, letting that sink in. "Isn't that what the council was originally formed to promote?" The shapeshifter representative, still wearing human form, laughed bitterly. "Clever. Using our own founding principles against us." "Not against you," Miller corrected. "For all of us. The Quantum Tunnel Network won't just benefit Earth, it will revolutionize travel for every species." He activated a hologram showing the completed network. "With Earth's equations, the tunnels will be stable. They'll cut travel time between systems from weeks to minutes. Trade will explode. Cultural exchange will flourish. The galaxy will become smaller." The council members studied the projection, seeing the potential. Miller could read their body language. They wanted this. They needed this. "But why should we trust humans?" asked the energy creature floating above its chair. "You've proven clever, yes, but also deceptive. You hid your true capabilities from us." "We hid nothing," Miller replied. "We broadcast our achievements openly. You chose not to listen because you thought we were primitive. That was your mistake, not our deception." First speaker Reed's skin rippled with colors of consideration. "The corporate representatives will fight this. They have much to lose. They have more to gain," Miller countered. "Instead of stealing human innovations, they could partner with us. Legal technology transfers, joint research projects, shared patents. Everyone profits." The Light Scholar chimed agreement. "The humans offer a new way forward. Not conquest or submission, but true cooperation." Miller watched as the council members communicated silently among themselves, using subtle gestures and color changes. The mood was shifting. They were beginning to see the possibilities. "There is one more thing," Miller said quietly. He placed a small device on the table. "This is a working prototype of our quantum field harmonizer. The key component your tunnel project is missing." The device hummed softly, generating a perfectly stable quantum field. The council members stared at it in amazement. This small machine proved everything Miller had claimed about human capabilities. "We bring this as a gesture of good faith," Miller explained. "A demonstration of what real cooperation could achieve." First speaker Reed was silent for a long moment. Finally, all four hands spread in a gesture of acceptance. "I will present your terms to the full council, with my recommendation for approval." The other council members indicated their agreement, each in their own way. The shapeshifter even shifted back to their natural form, a sign of respect. Miller sent a brief message back to Earth. "Terms accepted at committee level. Full council vote in one cycle. Prepare the technology transfer protocols." As the council members filed out, the Light Scholar lingered. "You have changed everything, Ambassador Miller. Not just the balance of power, but how we think about advancement itself." Miller smiled slightly. That was the goal. Progress doesn't have to be a competition. Sometimes the best way forward is together. He looked out the chamber window at the massive station, knowing that soon it would be humming with joint human-alien projects, new discoveries, and true cooperation. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would help lead the way. The Great Council chamber was packed with representatives from all 217 species. Miller stood at the center, a single human surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "You've all received the evidence," Miller said, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "For years, certain corporations have been stealing human innovations. They've been watching us, taking our ideas, and presenting them as their own." He gestured, and a series of holograms appeared above the chamber floor. Each showed a human invention paired with its copied version released by various alien corporations. "But that's not even the most interesting part," Miller continued. "The interesting part is why they needed to steal from us at all. After all, aren't we just primitive newcomers?" The chamber erupted in murmurs and clicks as the aliens discussed among themselves. Miller waited patiently, watching the various factions react. The corporate representatives were shifting uncomfortably, while the academic species showed signs of intense interest. "Humans think differently," Miller explained. "Where you see rules, we see possibilities. Where you follow established patterns, we try new approaches. That's why our solutions work when yours fail." He brought up a new hologram, the Quantum Tunnel Project hidden in the station's depths. "This massive project, for example, you followed the traditional theories of quantum mechanics, but they don't work on this scale, do they?" First Speaker Reed stood up. "These are classified matters. You have no authority." "I have every authority," Miller interrupted firmly. "You're building this device in space claimed by Earth. Space you were planning to take from us under the guise of protection." The chamber fell silent. Miller could see the political alliances shifting in real time as different species reconsidered their positions. "But we're not here to assign blame," Miller said, softening his tone. "We're here to offer a solution. Earth's scientists took a different approach to quantum tunneling. We looked at it not as a physics problem, but as a harmony problem." He activated a small device, and a complex mathematical model appeared in the air. Several of the academic species leaned forward, their sensory organs focused intently on the equations. "This is just a small sample of our research," Miller explained. "It shows why your current approach can't work. The quantum fields aren't failing because of your technology. They're failing because you're trying to force them instead of working with them." One of the crystalline beings stood up. "These equations, they're beautiful. They suggest a completely new way of understanding quantum space." "Exactly," Miller said. "And this is just the beginning. Earth has dozens of similar breakthroughs in various fields. We're not here to compete with you. We're here to collaborate." He turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from each major faction. "But collaboration requires respect. It requires recognition. And it requires honesty." The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. The academic species were arguing in favor of Earth, while the corporate representatives tried desperately to maintain control of the situation. First Speaker Reed raised all four hands for silence. "Ambassador Miller, you've given us much to consider. But these accusations against our corporate entities are proven," Miller interrupted again. "And you know it. The question now is, what are you going to do about it?" He let that sink in before delivering his final point. "Earth can help you make the quantum tunnel network work. We can help solve problems your best minds have struggled with for centuries. But we'll only do it as equals, not as subjects." The chamber descended into intense discussion. Miller stood quietly at the center, watching the power dynamics shift. He had just changed the game entirely, turned a conquest into a negotiation, a takeover into a partnership. Through his hidden quantum communicator, he sent a brief message back to Earth. "Phase 5 complete. They're ready. Prepare the full research package for transmission." The future of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy, would be decided in the next few hours. But for the first time since the negotiations began, humans would have a real voice in that decision. The council chamber fell silent as Miller activated a small holographic projector. The image that appeared showed a complex network of trade routes, with Earth's solar system at the center. 3 months ago, Miller said calmly, all traffic through this sector was rerouted. The official reason was routine maintenance, but there's nothing routine about diverting 10,000 ships at a cost of millions in fuel. First speaker Reed's skin rippled with shades of blue, a clear sign of distress. You seem well informed for a representative of a pre-council civilization. We may be new to your council, Miller replied, but we've been watching the stars for a very long time, and we pay attention to patterns. He changed the hologram. Now it showed energy readings from various points in space near Earth. These energy spikes began appearing 6 months ago. They matched the signature of quantum tunneling experiments. One of the crystalline beings shifted, creating a sharp ringing sound. This is classified information. How did you access it? Miller finished. We didn't. We discovered quantum tunneling ourselves. 2 years ago. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical force. Miller watched as the aliens communicated silently with each other through subtle gestures and color changes. They hadn't expected this. In fact, he continued, we've discovered quite a few things on our own. Things that some of your corporations have been quietly copying and claiming as their own innovations. He pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. It was a simple Earth-made quantum communicator, less advanced than the one he carried hidden, but still impressive. This design was patented on Earth 3 years ago, yet the Proxima Corporation released an identical product last month, claiming it as their breakthrough. The shapeshifter representative stood up abruptly. These are serious accusations. They are facts, Miller corrected. Just as it's a fact that your recent quantum tunneling experiments have failed. You can't stabilize the gateways, can you? That's why you need our solar system. Something about its unique position makes it perfect for your project. First speaker Reed rose slowly. Ambassador Miller, you are stepping into matters beyond your understanding. The protection agreement we offer is generous. Earth will be safe under Council guidance. Miller smiled slightly. Safe from what? Your failed experiments, or from the corporations that have been stealing our innovations. He changed the hologram one final time, showing a detailed analysis of the station's power consumption. You're building something massive here, something that requires enormous energy and precise positioning, something that only works if you control Earth's territory. The aliens were silent now, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. They had expected to dictate terms to a primitive species. Instead, they faced someone who had uncovered their plans and understood their technology. Let me be clear, Miller said, standing to meet their eyes level. Earth doesn't need your protection, but you need Earth's cooperation for your project to succeed. You cannot possibly understand the crystalline being started. We understand perfectly, Miller interrupted. You're trying to create stable quantum tunnels for instant space travel. We've been working on the same problem. The difference is, we solved the stability issues 6 months ago. This was a calculated risk. Earth hadn't actually solved the problem completely, but they were close. More importantly, Miller could see from the aliens' reactions that they were nowhere near a solution. Ambassador Miller, Reed said, voice tight with controlled emotion, perhaps we should approach these negotiations differently. I agree, Miller replied. Let's start by discussing real cooperation, not protection. Earth is willing to share our research, all of it, in exchange for full council membership and recognition of our sovereign rights. He sat back down, watching the chaos his words had created. The aliens were talking rapidly in their own languages, gesturing frantically. Their carefully planned subjugation of Earth had just transformed into something entirely different. And in the depths of the station, the massive device they were building continued to draw power, waiting for the solution that only Earth could provide. Miller spent the next station cycle methodically exploring the public areas of the station. To the aliens watching him, he appeared to be a simple human tourist, marveling at their advanced technology. In reality, he was building a detailed mental map of power dynamics and relationships. In the great observation deck, he paused to watch a group of crystalline beings arguing with some reptilian diplomats. Their translator devices were working perfectly, but Miller could read the true meaning in their body language. They were discussing travel routes, and they were afraid. "Quite a view, isn't it?" A voice spoke behind him. Miller turned to find a human-looking alien, one of the shapeshifters from the Proxima sector. They weren't even trying to hide their mocking tone. "Indeed," Miller replied, noting how the alien had chosen a form meant to unsettle him. "Though I find the traffic patterns more interesting than the stars." The shapeshifter's borrowed human face showed surprise for a fraction of a second. "Oh, what could a newcomer find interesting about standard space traffic?" Miller pointed to a distant line of ships. "Those vessels, for instance, they're being rerouted around the Earth sector. Started about 3 months ago, according to our observations. Quite expensive in terms of fuel and time, I'd imagine." The shapeshifter's form flickered slightly, a sign of agitation. Without another word, they turned and walked away. Miller smiled. Another piece of information confirmed. He made his way to the station's public library, a vast chamber filled with holographic data streams. His official access was limited, but he didn't need much. The public maps told him everything he needed to know. Earth's solar system sat at the junction of 3 major trade routes. Routes that, until recently, no one had cared about. Something had changed, and that change was what brought the Council's attention to Earth. His quantum communicator vibrated slightly. A message from Earth. The Defense Council had analyzed his previous reports. They'd found something interesting in the station's power consumption patterns. Miller walked to one of the huge windows, pretending to admire the view while he processed the information. The station was drawing massive amounts of power, far more than its operations required. They were planning something big and soon. A small maintenance drone buzzed past him, pausing briefly. Miller kept his face carefully neutral. The drone was one of theirs, released by the transport ship that had brought him. It had been scanning and mapping the station's restricted areas. The drone's data confirmed his suspicions. Deep in the station's secure sections, the Council was building something that required enormous energy and, based on the material shipments, large quantities of rare elements, the same elements that were abundant in Earth's solar system. Ambassador Miller. First Speaker Reed's voice came over the station's communication system. "Please report to Chamber 17 for preliminary discussions." Miller straightened his simple Earth uniform. As he walked to the chamber, he activated a small device in his pocket, one of humanity's true technological achievements. It created a subtle field that interfered with certain types of quantum scanning, making it impossible for the aliens to detect the more advanced tech he carried. Chamber 17 was small by station standards, but still impressive. 7 representatives from the most powerful council species sat waiting for him. Their chairs were arranged in a half-circle, positioned to be physically higher than the single human chair. "Welcome, Ambassador," Reed said from the center position. "We have reviewed Earth's current development level and have prepared a generous protection agreement." Miller took his seat, noting how each alien's posture conveyed the same message. They thought this was already decided. They expected him to be overwhelmed by their presence, grateful for their attention, and eager to accept their terms. "Thank you," he replied carefully. "But before we discuss protection, I'd like to know more about the Council's recent interest in the space around our solar system." The aliens stiffened almost in unison. In that small reaction, Miller saw the truth. They weren't offering protection. They were preparing for something much bigger. And they needed Earth's territory to do it. He settled back in his chair, ready for the real negotiations to begin. The Galactic Council station hung in space like a massive crystalline flower, its petals stretching out for miles. Miller stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, carefully keeping his expression neutral despite his awe. The alien crew watched him, probably expecting some primitive reaction of wonder. Instead, he simply asked, How many species are represented here? 217 spacefaring civilizations, the ship's commander replied. Miller noticed how the alien's upper membrane flickered, a sign of pride, but also of concern. Interesting. The docking procedure took nearly an hour. Miller used this time to observe the traffic patterns around the station. Some ships were given immediate priority, while others waited in long queues. Power structures were always revealed in such simple things. When they finally stepped onto the station, Miller was hit by a wave of sounds, smells, and movements that would have overwhelmed him if he hadn't spent years preparing for this moment. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the massive arrival hall. Some floated, others crawled, many walked on varying numbers of limbs. A tall, blue-skinned being approached them. "Welcome to Central Station. I am first speaker Reed." The name was clearly chosen to sound familiar to human ears. "I will be your guide." Miller noticed how other aliens moved away from Reed, not out of respect, but fear. He filed this information away for later use. "Thank you, first speaker," Miller replied, matching the alien's formal tone. "I look forward to learning about the Council's protocols." Reed led him through countless corridors, each more grand than the last. Miller appeared to be admiring the architecture, but he was actually counting security checkpoints and noting which species operated them. They arrived at his assigned quarters, a large circular room that had been hastily modified to support human life. "The Council will convene in 6 station cycles," Reed informed him. "You will be called when needed." After Reed left, Miller did a careful sweep of his quarters, finding exactly what he expected: 17 different types of monitoring devices. Whoever placed them hadn't bothered to hide them well, another sign that they considered humans primitive. He pulled out his datapad and began working, knowing they were watching. But the pad's surface showed only simple notes about Council procedure. The real work was happening through the quantum communicator embedded in his artificial tooth, sending compressed data bursts back to Earth. "Multiple factions present," he subvocalized, the words being transmitted instantly across light years. "At least 3 major power blocks. Heavy surveillance, but outdated by our standards." "They're overconfident," a soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal a small green-skinned alien with large, intelligent eyes. "I am Representative Toll," it said, "from the Outer Rim worlds." Miller had read about this species. They were considered weak by Council standards, but they were survivors. "Please enter," he said, gesturing to a seat. Toll moved carefully, body language suggesting both fear and determination. "I came to warn you," it said quietly. "The Council, they don't intend to negotiate. They've already decided Earth's fate." "Have they?" Miller kept his voice calm, but his mind was racing. This was either a genuine warning or a test, possibly both. "They will offer you protection, but it's really submission. Those who refuse." Toll's skin darkened slightly, a sign of distress. Miller nodded slowly. "Thank you for the warning. But tell me, why does the Council suddenly care about Earth?" "We've been broadcasting our presence for decades." Toll's eyes widened slightly. "You don't know. Your solar system. It's—" The alien stopped suddenly, looking around nervously. "Please," Miller said gently, "continue." "I said too much." Toll stood quickly. "Just be careful. Not everyone here is your enemy, but almost no one is your friend." After Toll left, Miller sent another message back to Earth. "First piece of the puzzle in place. They need something from our solar system, badly enough to make some species nervous about their plans." He walked to the window, looking out at the endless stream of ships moving around the station. Somewhere in this massive structure, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were preparing to decide Earth's fate. But Miller had no intention of letting them make that decision alone. The massive screens in Earth's United Defense Command showed the alien message for the 100th time. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers and the nervous tapping of Admiral Peters' fingers on the steel conference table. "They want one representative. Just one, Peters said, looking at the assembled group of military and civilian leaders. And they expect us to send them in 3 days. The alien message was clear. Earth needed to send a single diplomat to the Galactic Council. The terms were non-negotiable. After decades of ignoring humanity's radio signals and space exploration efforts, the advanced civilizations had suddenly decided Earth was worth their attention. James Miller sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching everyone's reactions. At 55 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair, he had spent 30 years studying how different species communicated. While others saw aliens as completely foreign beings, he saw patterns in their behavior, their movements, and their choices. "We can't trust them," General Thompson argued, standing up to pace the room. "It's clearly a trap. One human, alone, against hundreds of alien species. They'll either kill our representative or force them to sign away Earth's rights." Miller cleared his throat. "Actually, their message tells us more than they intended." All eyes turned to him. Miller stood up slowly, walking to the main screen. "Look at how they formatted the message. Look at the spacing between words, the choice of colors. They're trying to intimidate us, yes, but they're also afraid." "Afraid? Of us?" Peters asked, surprised. "We're centuries behind their technology." Miller nodded. "That's exactly why. We're an unknown factor. They don't understand why we've advanced so quickly in the last century. Most species take thousands of years to reach where we are now." He pointed to specific parts of the alien message. "See these symbols? They're using formal diplomatic language. If they wanted to simply conquer us, they wouldn't bother with diplomacy. They want something from Earth, something they can't just take by force." The room fell silent as this sank in. Miller continued, "I studied every piece of alien communication we've intercepted over the last 20 years. Each species has patterns, just like humans do. They think we're primitive, but that works in our favor. They won't expect us to understand their subtle messages." Admiral Peters leaned forward. "Are you volunteering, Miller?" "Yes," Miller replied simply. "I've spent my life preparing for this, even if I didn't know it at the time. Send me." The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Miller was briefed on every piece of alien technology Earth had managed to study. He memorized what little they knew about each major alien species in the Council. Most importantly, he was fitted with nearly invisible recording devices and a quantum entanglement communicator, Earth's most closely guarded technological advancement. On the morning of his departure, Miller stood alone in his apartment, looking at an old photograph. It showed him with his wife Mary, who had passed away 5 years ago. She had always supported his unusual career choice of studying alien communication patterns, even when others called it a waste of time. "You were right, my love," he whispered. They did come eventually. The alien ship that arrived to collect him was massive, sleek, and completely silent. As Miller walked up the boarding ramp, carrying only a small bag of personal items, Admiral Peters stopped him. "Remember," Peters said quietly, "you're not just representing Earth. You're carrying humanity's future with you." Miller nodded. "They think they're calling us in to dictate terms. They don't realize they're actually inviting us to play their game." He smiled slightly. "And I've spent 30 years learning their rules." The ship's door closed behind him with a soft hiss. As Earth grew smaller in the viewing window, Miller began observing everything: the ship's layout, the crew's movements, the subtle hierarchies in how they interacted. Every detail could be important. He was one human going to face an entire galaxy of advanced civilizations. But unlike what they expected, he wasn't going as a primitive representative of a backward planet. He was going as humanity's answer to their challenge, and he planned to show them exactly why they should have paid attention to Earth sooner.